When we do something at a local level, I am going to head up. I'm going to be the captain of my district, of my area. I'm going to be in touch with the regional director for this movement. I am going to go to Topeka and talk to the legislators and make sure that they're on board with this. I'm going to make sure they vote on it and that we're going to get signed up, because guess what? When they go to the convention and they start debating and arguing and deciding how to create an amendment to impose restrictions on the federal government, guess what? You did that at the local level. How cool is that? You did that at the most basic local level. How awesome is that? And that's what we advocate for, because we have an opportunity to change something at the local level that's going to affect the entire national stage. And that's what we want to advocate for. It's an Article 5 convention where the states can convene, can get together, and be able to write federal regulation to impose on the federal government. And it's been a movement that's been slowly being built up, slowly being created over the past couple of years. And I'm really excited because, unfortunately, the state of Kansas has not been able to pass this over the past couple of years. We've been trying to advocate for it. And this year, it may be even tough to get in with some of the individuals that I don't know whether they support it or not. I'd love to see them support it. We embrace them to support, regardless of whether they're Republican, Democrat, Independent, moderate. It doesn't matter. This is a way, if we're going to change policy in the state of Kansas, this is a way that we can unite. We can work together. They always talk about working together and moving forward in a direction. This is how we do it, because then we have more control over what we do with our own state. And in studio with us to talk about this for the next little bit here, Chuck Akins, the district captain for the Convention of the States. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Andy, and I really appreciate you having me on the show to talk about this.
Well,
this is awesome.
I appreciate you coming on here, because this is something that I've been a huge advocate for a very long time, and I'm really sad because I always see Kansas as the safe haven of progressivism, and we are kind of the leaders when it comes to conservative values. I mean, Governor Brownback, whether we like him, dislike him, whatever the case is, he led a conservative movement when it comes to tax policy. We have a Secretary of State that really tries to hammer down on immigration law and illegal immigrants all over the country, essentially. He wrote the immigration laws for Arizona. I mean, he's been a huge advocate for that. We have solid conservatives like Tim Huelskamp, like Mike Pompeo, like many individuals here at the federal and at the state levels that advocate for limited government. And it's really sad to hear that with as long as we've been trying to promote this, the Convention of the States, that we have not signed up as a state of Kansas to promote a Convention of the States and actually join into this movement. Why do you think that is?
Well, it's a tough thing for our state. I mean, like you mentioned, all those things. I don't know. I think a lot of it is just a misunderstanding of maybe what it's about and the fear of it. That we get a lot of that, and I just want to emphasize that, like you mentioned, this is not a partisan issue. It's about the states versus the federal government. Exactly. It's about the struggle between a distant, highly centralized government versus a local, close to home government. This is about who makes the policy decisions, not about what the decisions are or what policies you favor. This is about who decides what is best for us. I mean, it's just like, when you think about it, do we want our policy decisions made by Washington, D.C., or do we want them made here in our own home state? I mean, it comes down to that.
You would think that would be common sense there. Right. We want to have the decisions at a local level the best that we possibly can, which is not what's happening right now.
No.
Now, for those individuals who may not be as familiar with the Convention of the States, Article 5 deems that the states can join together, can band together, and write federal regulation onto the federal government, can make a decision for the entire country
by
outside,
amendment.
Exactly, as an amendment outside of federal, to the federal House, the federal Senate, the Supreme Court, the president, whatever. They can decide and they can vote on it. Now, obviously, when it was written, there was a lot easier to do so because there were less states. But now that we have 50 states, we still have that opportunity, but it grants the ability to the states to actually have a voice that they don't otherwise have. And this is what you guys promote and advocate for all the time. Do you guys get a lot of individuals when you're talking to people that are just like, I don't know whether I'd like that or not. I don't know whether I support something like this or not, or just aren't familiar with the situation?
Well, yeah, a lot of it is just, again, people don't understand it. And then some people or just fear it. They're scared. They don't trust anything that comes out of Washington, and truly, they don't. I mean, they don't trust the state to a certain point. Right. But the beauty about this is it gives a voice to us, me I'm just a guy here that works in town. I'm an aviation guy. I work here in town. Mm-hmm. It gives me a way that I can contact my legislator, who I know him personally,
yep,
and tell him about this. It gives us a voice. And once we can connect and we can get the required 2/3 of the state, which is 34 states, to submit the applications to Congress, we can have a separate convention with the state, with just the states,
just the states,
and
without
not
even
have
oversight of them.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the interesting part is over all the years, since the first constitutional convention of 1787. This topic has been brought up.
Sure.
And I'm surprised that we've never, as a country, done this. And I think if we would have done this a lot sooner, a lot of what we're dealing with now, as far as the federal government being on their own little island, it seems like, maybe, and the states losing their power, I think maybe it would have helped.
Exactly.
But here we are, and we know just by the last election, this previous election, where the country is thinking right now, and I know other states are coming online, other and the movement is growing in itself because people are just tired of it, and they see this is a perfect way. This is what the framers gave us.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Why don't we use it?
Exactly. And just to be clear for people who are scared of this, it's not a convention of the states to toss out the Constitution,
nope,
to rewrite the entire law of the land, to do something completely different. This is an opportunity for us to amend things that are already happening at the federal level to build onto the Constitution the way it was intended to do so.
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of things that people don't understand. One of them is there's two constitutions, right? There's the Constitution that came out, of 1788, out of the Constitutional Convention, and then there's the Constitution we have now that is all the interpretations from the courts over the years, mm-hmm, which is almost 3,000 pages, yep, versus what our little Constitution, like the little pocket guide that I carry.
Sure.
And that's what we're being held by now, is that huge document that has pulled us away from the intent of what the founders gave us in the country, and that's what I mean. I get passionate about it because I have, like all of us, we have children and we see the future, and we see where our government has taken us.
Yep.
Well, it's time to take it back.
And also on the line with us, the regional director of the Convention of the States, Mr. Dave Schneider, is with us. Dave, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Hey, appreciate you coming on and joining us here with Chuck and I talking about this. Now, you oversee not just Kansas, but you oversee many states when it comes to trying to organize this convention. Where all are you at in working with different states?
Well, not only Kansas, but I have 9 other states that I deal with here in the central part of the United States, all the way from Texas basically to Michigan and everywhere in between, including the Dakotas.
Well, so, fantastic. And what kind of movement or energy or positive direction movement are you seeing in these other states? I mean, are they getting on board? Or are we kind of one of the last few that are kind of dragging our feet to this, or what are you seeing?
Well, the great news is most of my states look great. We are going to be passing several of these states this year. I'd love to add Kansas to that particular list. We've kind of lagging behind here. This is my home state of Kansas, and it's kind of disappointing that we haven't moved this ball forward as much as some of the other states around us have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Oklahoma passed this thing last year. Texas is going to be really, really quick to pass it. Missouri should be as well. Nebraska's looking wonderful. So all of our neighboring states are jumping on board, but yeah, Kansas is kind of lagging behind a little bit.
Kansas, not so much yet. So what kind of pushback are you getting saying that, hey, we're trying to advocate for the states to have a bigger voice at the federal level, being able to actually convene and do what the Constitution allows us to do? I mean, what kind of pushback, even here in Kansas, what kind of pushback are you seeing from these guys that don't want to do it?
Well, I tell you what, it's a unique situation in the state of Kansas where we need a 2/3 majority. We held a vote in the Kansas House last year, and we were 7 votes short. And trying to get the 2/3 majority is very, very hard in the Kansas legislature. And with that big higher threshold than any other state has, see, Kansas actually has it written into the Kansas Constitution that it needs a supermajority to pass any Article 5 action. It's just another safeguard that Kansas has written into it. So it is meant to be a little bit tougher, and that's okay. But here's the thing. We've got to get going again here in Kansas to catch up some of these other states that are moving. So that's why Chuck's doing a great job there in Wichita, getting everybody organized and motivated and getting back to make sure that we educate all these new legislators that are coming into Topeka of this process. You know, a lot of the education we had done to the people are no longer there. So they either, they've left now Topeka, so we've got to start that process over again.
Now, Chuck, being the district captain for the Wichita area here, I mean, what is your role in this? Because I know a lot of people, I mean, we have people calling in the show all the time saying, hey, remember that convention of the states? Remember the Article 5? It's a big movement right now. It's growing. We're doing a lot of things. And I know a lot of people would probably want to get involved in this. I mean, how did you become a district captain, and what is your role in this as a community member?
Well, the interesting part about, getting involved was, I like a lot of us about 3 years ago, when Mark Levin's Liberty Amendments came out, and we read that book, it was like the spark. And then we found out about Convention of the States, and of course, it was like, all right, this is what it's about. And it opened our eyes. And, I've been doing it now for about 3 years. And the interesting thing about, around Wichita is, in the state of Kansas, Wichita has a lot, Sedgwick County in itself has a lot of House districts.
Sure.
There's plenty of districts. And, I'm district captain for my district over here on House District 94. But we, there's about almost 10 of us around Wichita for district captains, but we cover more than just our district, obviously. So we could always use more district captains, and that would be the extent of just keeping in contact with your legislator, and keeping in contact with people like Dave here, and then our state director Tony Gillette, who's up in near Kansas City area, and we're just all connected on what we need to do to get this legislature passed.
Sure.
And that's basically it. And we have meetings like once a month here in town. We'll meet somewhere easy, and we'll talk what we need to do and strategize. And just to let you know, and I want to announce this, you were asking how people can get involved. Well, we're having a kind of a seminar this Wednesday at the Alfred Library here in town at 6:30, and we're going to be running through a COS presentation, and we can get more deep into everything, what it's about, and then all the questions that can come with it, and people could ask. But if people want to come to that, it's at the Alfred Library at 6:30 Wednesday night, this Wednesday, and we'll be there. And then again, you can go online at www.conventionofstates.com, and you can sign the petition, and that, of course, will send an email or to the legislator of their district, letting them know that they support it. But better yet, sign up to be a volunteer, or better yet, a district captain. You can do that right there on that website too.
Sure.
So that's another way.
Sure. I love it. Now, we got about a minute left here before the bottom of the hour, but Dave, I want to ask you really quickly before we let you guys go, do you think now, with Donald Trump being in office, with the Republicans having a majority at the federal level, with the massive majority of Republicans at the statewide levels, is that going to make the environment for the Convention of the States easier this year or more difficult because people may be a little more laxated?
I term it as people are Trump drunk a little bit, and the fact that they think that he's going to be a savior with the ills that we've got going on in D.C. In fact, with his victories only hours old, the federal government had already poured some cold water on the real change in D.C. Immediately after the final results, the majority leader, Mitch McConnell, stated in no uncertain terms that the Senate would ever consider term limit amendment that he was proposing. Sure. We have term limits. They are called elections, is what he said. While Republicans maintain their majority in both the Senate and the House, it's clear the ruling elites want to continue to enjoy their power as much as Democrats and or around give that up. So,
sure.
Thankfully, under the Convention of the States applications, the states can propose those term limits.
I love it. Dave Snyder, Regional Director, Chuck Aikens, District Captain. Appreciate you guys coming in today, and thanks for joining on the phone. We got to get you guys back on here because it's a serious issue that we really need to focus on here. So appreciate you guys.
just met like the kindest, most welcoming people who have made me feel empowered.